So now let's look at these two conditions over here, because obviously that has been already asked in your FMGE exam in 2025. In aqueductal stenosis, there is a blockade in the aqueduct of Sylvius, which is also referred to as cerebral aqueduct, and that leads to dilatation of third ventricle. That is something important, and I think now my students don't have to mug up that. Now, one more point to remember here. Remember, aqueductal stenosis is the most common cause of congenital hydrocephalus. So, the most common cause of congenital hydrocephalus will be congenital aqueductal stenosis. Now, moving ahead, Dandy-Walker syndrome. In Dandy-Walker syndrome, there will be atresia of foramen of Lashka and foramen of Magendie, and that will lead to dilatation of which ventricle here? That is the fourth ventricle. Now, first look at this diagram. In this diagram, you are able to appreciate the pons here, and then there will be medulla here, and this is the cerebellum. Now, between them, you are able to see this is the fourth ventricle. That's in normal people like you and me right now. But in Dandy-Walker syndrome, what is going to happen? Of course, there is pons here, and then you have medulla here. But you can clearly see the fourth ventricle will be enlarged here. And yes, of course, the cerebellum will be actually compressed there. So this is the image that you have to remember about the Dandy-Walker syndrome. Perfect. So my main intention here in anatomy, we are going to of course correlate anatomy clinically with many subjects here. So my intention mainly is to teach you about dilatation of the ventricles and make it easy in conceptual manner. So therefore, the final conclusion here, in aqueductal stenosis, third ventricle is enlarged, whereas in Dandy-Walker syndrome, remember the fourth ventricle will be enlarged. Perfect. Now, once you are done with this topics here, my dear friends, with this we are done with like introduction of neuroanatomy and of course the clinical correlation. Now let us go towards the next topic, that is spinal cord. Now, the spinal cord is another very important topic here. Every now and then in your exams, one question will be asked from here, and mainly I have observed that the question will be from the extent of the spinal cord and the terminal part of the spinal cord. That is the ending part of the spinal cord. Fine. So first let us learn about the extent. Now, in adults, remember the spinal cord is going to begin from C1, the first cervical vertebra, and it is going to extend up to L1, and that to the lower border of L1. But recently in one of your exams, they have asked in neonates. In neonates, the spinal cord will be extending from C1 to L3, and that too it is the upper border of L3. Upper border of L3. Perfectly done. And now, my dear friends, remember, in adults we have learned that it is extending from C1 to L1. Okay, that is the lower border of L1. But please look at this reference. This is from 42nd edition of Gray's Anatomy, and there is an update in this one. Remember, in adults, the spinal cord is going to terminate on an average at the level of middle third of body of the first lumbar vertebra. I mean to say, nowadays it is not like lower border of L1, not the lower border of first lumbar vertebra. It's actually middle third of the body of the L1. So please update yourself that it is not the lower border of L1. Nowadays it is actually the body of L1. The body of L1. Okay. If you don't even remember like middle 1/3 of the body, that is not going to make any change. At least remember the body of L1. So now my students are intelligent enough to answer in the exam according to the options which are given there. I have said you both the things with the update also. Perfect. And we can see the genuine reference there. It is directly a screenshot from the Gray's Anatomy 42nd edition. Done. Now, once you are done with this one, we know very well spinal cord, the shape of the spinal cord will be cylindrical. Cylindrical like the pen that you're holding in your hand right now. Now, even though the shape of the spinal cord is like cylindrical here, but remember, uniformly, I mean to say the entire length, like almost it is 45 centimeters in males. Throughout the length, it's not uniformly cylindrical. At two places, the spinal cord will be enlarged. It's very simple. Number one, upper limb, they require more nerves, brachial plexus, and wherever it is forming, there the spinal cord will be enlarged. And thank God doctors have given a very simple name there, that is cervical enlargement. Similarly, lower limb, they require more nerves, lumbosacral plexus will be forming there, and that is supplying to your lower limb. And there also the spinal cord will be enlarged. And thank God the name is very simple, lumbar enlargement. So there are like two enlargements in the spinal cord. One is cervical, another one is lumbar enlargement. Now you got to remember the extent of this one. Now, what is the extent of cervical enlargement? Remember, it is extending from, yes, C3 to T2, and lumbar enlargement will be from L1 to S3. L1 to S3. Now, I'll tell you the catch here. Actually, this extent has been asked in your exam, but I'll tell you what is the catch here, what is the problem. Now, many of the students will be asking this doubt here. Sir, you said that spinal cord is extending from C1 up to L1 in adults, up to the lower border of L1, updated you know very well, up to the body of L1, fine. But if it is extending only up to L1, then how come the lumbar enlargement is from L1 to S3 then? First of all, try to understand the doubt here. I just now said you that, I repeat again, I just now said you that the spinal cord is extending from C1 to L1. But now I'm telling you that the lumbar enlargement is from L1 to S3. How is it possible? Please remember that whatever extent of the spinal cord I told you from C1 to L1, that is with respect to vertebrae. But whatever I told you about the enlargements of the spinal cord, that is C3 to T2 and L1 to S3, this enlargements here, it is not with respect to vertebrae, it is with respect to the spinal segments only. It is with respect to the segments of the spinal cord, not vertebrae. So this C3 to T2, L1 to S3 is not vertebrae, it's actually the spinal segments. Perfectly done. Now, once you are done with this extent as well as the enlargements, we have covered all the MCQs here. Now, my dear friends, welcome to the terminal part of the spinal cord, the ending of the spinal cord. There are so many MCQs here, and it's like a beautiful concept. Let's learn this concept now. So now we are going to discuss about the terminal part of the spinal cord. Remember that spinal cord ends in a cone-shaped structure. And this cone-shaped structure here will be referred to as conus medullaris. Please don't answer as chorda equina. It is conus medullaris. So spinal cord ends in a cone-shaped structure known as conus medullaris. We know very well where is this ending. The spinal cord ends at L1, the lower border of L1. Fine. Now, as a simple medical student, my doubt here is that, sir, if the spinal cord is ending at L1 only, the first lumbar vertebra, then what do I have after L1? The remaining lumbar and then the sacral and up to the coccyx, what do you have then? So remember, right from the tip of the conus medullaris, there is a fine thread-like structure. And that fine thread-like structure will go all the way up to the coccyx. Now, what is the name of this one? Remember this fine thread-like structure here, this one here will be the phylum terminale. This one here will be the phylum terminale. Perfect. Now our curiosity will increase more here. So you're just telling like it is a fine thread-like structure. Right from the tip of the conus medullaris up to the coccyx, there is a fine thread-like structure, that is phylum terminale. But what is this phylum terminale exactly? So remember, our brain and the spinal cord are covered by meninges. And I told you which is the innermost meninge. The innermost meninge here will be the pia mater. And this pia mater is not going to stop here. It's going to further continue down. And that continuation of the pia mater, is nothing but phylum terminale. That means phylum terminale is one of the modifications of pia mater. It is the modification of pia mater. Now comes the next question. See, look at the concept here, how the concept is building here. Now automatically the next question that comes in our mind, so if this one is pia mater, then where exactly is the arachnoid and dura mater? So remember, the arachnoid and dura mater is going to further descend down and then combine with the pia mater. Arachnoid and dura mater are going to descend down and finally combine with the pia mater here. So imagine this blue colored line here to be the arachnoid as well as the dura mater. Now comes the next question. The next question is, where exactly is this arachnoid and dura mater joining? So please remember, they are going to join at the level of S2. To be more specific, it is the lower border of S2. Perfectly done. Now, just now I told you that between the pia mater and arachnoid mater, this space here will be the subarachnoid space. Now, if this one is the subarachnoid space, obviously, there will be CSF present in this one here. In the subarachnoid space, you'll be able to appreciate the CSF present here. Now, one more question that was asked in your exams was, where exactly is this subarachnoid space ending then? Again, the answer will be same. The subarachnoid space will be ending at the level of S2 again. So therefore, let us write down this one here. Subarachnoid space ends at the level of S2. And to be more specific, the lower border of S2. One more MCQ has been solved here. Perfectly done. So let us do one thing, like so many points we have covered here. Let's have a revision till here first of all. Spinal cord ends in a cone-shaped structure, conus medullaris. Right from the tip of that up to the coccyx, there will be fine thread-like structure, phylum terminal. And that is the modification of pia mater. If that is pia mater, then arachnoid and dura will be meeting at the level of S2. So therefore comes another MCQ, subarachnoid space ends at the level of S2. Now, why do you want to know about this concept in so much of detail and crystal clearly? My dear friends, remember, spinal cord is ending at the level of L1, whereas subarachnoid space is ending at the level of S2. So therefore, in between these two, I get a chance to insert the needle and do lumbar puncture without damaging the spinal cord. So without damaging the spinal cord, we can actually insert the needle and do the lumbar puncture here. And this question also has been asked many a times in your exam. Lumbar puncture will be more commonly done at which level? Remember, the better answer will be between L3 and L4.